Hey, what's going on, you guys? It's your boy 3 Stacks in this thing, going over my Stellarknights. I love this deck so much. It's one of the best rogue decks in my personal opinion, and it won Worlds in 2015, and the deck has such a high ceiling when it comes to grind game mechanic. I've been playing Stellarknight artifacts. I really love how it works, especially with Demise, which I play in this build as well. I just love the deck. It's such a powerful grind game deck with so much traps and such a great control aspect. I love the deck a lot. It's one of those decks, if you want to, do good in this meta and you can't afford to buy meta decks, you can pick this deck up for around 50 bucks. I think anything that's not Carter Demise and maybe like the artifacts themselves is going to be around like $2. So it's a very cheap and affordable deck, minus the strikes, I guess. So if you want to just play the Stellarknights itself, it's a pretty cheap deck, and I think it's a great budget option if you're trying to play Yu-Gi-Oh and still do good but not spend money. But we're going to hop right into this deck profile. We are playing 2 Grim Reapers and 1 Artifact Moral Attack. For the Artifact engine, I just decided to play the 3 monsters. If you burn out of targets for your Sanctums, you do have Daigusto Emerald in your extra deck, so that helps out as well. We are playing 3 copies of Deneb. Deneb is the best Stellarknight monster. She gets your engine rolling. Once you have 1 Deneb, you really only need 1 because you bring it back off of your Altair, your Call the Haunted, your Oasis of Dragon Souls. Then you keep bouncing your calls and your Oasis with your VA, and then next thing you know, you have limitless resources and just a never-ending field presence. I call it a snowball effect. It's one of the reasons why this deck has been so powerful for so long, and it's how this deck has basically been able to stay good. Even though people might not play it, you'll still see Stellarknight players here and there because Call the Haunted in this deck is just so amazing. 3 copies of Stellarknight Altair. He's basically the wolf bark of the deck. I play 2 ukuleles. It's just my personal preference. I like her at 2. 1 Alsam, he burns for 1,000. He's one of my favorites. He helps you, even if your opponent has an established field, you can summon him, burn for 1,000, then Call the Haunted him back and burn for another 1,000. It can be game. It's just really clutch. And 1 Vega, she specials for the hand, and I play her at a 1-up because I'm playing Demise in this build, so I really don't want to draw into her, especially if you cannot play her. And just having 1 of her and 1 Deneb in rotation is pretty good. So just 13 monsters. The artifacts, if you happen to draw them off the Demise, then you can set them. And I do also play the Stellarknight Genesis, one of the best spells that Konami came up with for this archetype. It helps out a lot with the artifact engine. And then we're playing 3 copies of Carter Demise. This deck abuses Carter Demise so amazing because if you do draw into any monsters, if it's an artifact, you can set it. If it's a Stellarknight, you can special summon it from the grave with your 3 calls or even your 2 Oasis. So your Demise can not only draw you a bunch of cards, but it can set you up for your Call the Haunted play. So it's always going to be good in this deck. This is one of the few decks that abuses Demise even if it draws monsters. So I like it a lot. Then in tandem with that, we're playing 3 copies of Pot of Duality and also 2 copies of Pot of Desires. The deck does need a lot of draw power because it's kind of one of those decks where you set 5 and pass a turn. I'm not lying to you. It's literally like a set 5 pass deck. And even though you have those 5 back rows, you're reliant solely on those 5 back rows, and at that point you're top decking. So it's great to have spells like this if you top deck any of these, or if you have it, you can set 4 and pass a turn. So that way, if your opponent grinds through your 4 or 5 back rows, you can play any of these spells and get more traps or even a monster for field presence. So it helps out a lot. Some can say Desires is bad, but I've had games where I've literally set 5. My opponent played through every single one of my 5 traps. I'm coming down to top decking now. I draw either this, Demise, or I draw into Demise and Demise into Desires. Now I have 5 fresh cards. 1 or 2 of them could be monsters. The rest are back rows to just stay in the game. So Desires helps out a lot. Like Desires and Demise will literally draw you just a fresh hand. And that is why I like playing it in this deck. 2 copies of Stellarknight Genesis. Stellarknight Genesis helps out a lot when you can destroy your own artifacts. It says destroy spells or traps on the field up to the number of Stellarknight Stellarknight cards you control. Other Stellarknight cards, because this is a Stellarknight card itself. But basically, if you have like Call the Haunted, you can call for your Altair. Altair special summon Vega. Vega special summon Deneb. Deneb to search. Activate this, destroy 3 back rows. 1 of them can be your artifact, and you can clear 2 of your opponent's back rows and then stun him. So it has great applications with the artifact engine, and it's a lot more powerful than the Twin Twisters. Although it is solely reliant on you having a field presence, you get your field presence popping pretty often. I like it at 2. It's perfect. I like it a lot. You don't have to play it. And then 1 Rhoda to sum up the spells. It's a pretty fat spell lineup. And the next thing is going to be a pretty fat trap lineup. We're playing 3 Satel Nova Alpha. It's basically the Solemn Judgment of the deck. And it also lets you net a free card. If you play this and send your Stellarknight Deltaros or Trivier, you'll not only get to draw a card, but you'll get a Deneb search off of your Altair. So it can be a +2, in addition to it being a freaking Solemn Judgment, or you can say 9 Pillars of the Yangzing. And then we're playing 3 copies of Solemn Strike, as if, you know, the alphas wasn't enough. And we're also playing 3 copies of Artifact Sanctum. This trap helps you out a lot because it can be a lose a turn against Zodiacs if you're playing a Firewall Dragon Turbo deck, or if you're playing Light Sworns or Twilight Sworns. If you're playing a Wind Witch deck, if you're playing Invokes, if you're playing... I mean, the only decks that don't really need an extra deck, I think, are Trick Stars and True Dracos. That's it. So this hurts everything. And it's a lot more versatile than D-Barrier because you don't have to call one thing and then they summon another. Because like Light Sworns, not every deck is limited to only XYZs. And obviously, you can't use D-Barrier to stop Link summoning. So this stops Link summoning as well. And I think a lot of people sleep on this card. It's such a great trap. It'll always be a great trap. When people pick up on artifacts again, of course, Sanctum's going to spike. And everybody and their mama's going to be like, oh, I need the artifacts. 3 copies of Call. Not only is this so abusive for your Stellarknights for the snowball effect, but you can call the Haunted back your artifact Scythe or Moral Attack and activate their effects again on your opponent's turn. We're playing 3 copies of Drowning Mirror Force and 2 copies of regular Mirror Force. I was thinking so crazy as I wanted to play 2 copies of Blazing, but then I was like, Trick Stars are a thing, we gotta be careful with that. So just the 5 Mirror Forces. 2 copies of Oasis of the Dragon Souls because revival traps in this deck that are continuous are quite abusive because Stellarknight Trivier, when she is XYZ summoned, bounces all cards. So you can call or Oasis for your Altair, Deneb, Search, you know, go into Batlamius, then go into your Trivier, bounce this back to your hand, and then you can play it again, bounce it to your hand, play it again, bounce it to your hand, play it again. It's a snowball effect. It's one of the things that makes Stellarknight so annoying to play against. Of course, a lot of people don't have to worry about this because Stellarknights are a deck that nobody cares about, but I still care about them. 1 copy of Torrential Tribute to sum up the traps. Torrential Tribute is one of those traps that you kind of just have to play into it. There's no real way to bait it out. You're going to lose something no matter what. And that will sum up the main deck. Now, the extra deck is going to be 1 Artifact Durindal, 1 Constellar Pleiades. I wanted to do 2 Durindals. Where's my other Durindal? It's right here. But I was like, you know what? Let's have versatile options. We're going to do Pleiades and Durindal. There is one situation where it's like you can make another rank 5, but it's not worth it all the time. And then 3 copies of Trivier. I know her name is Triver. I know her name is Triver. I call her Trivier because I like the way it sounds. It's my deck, my card. 2 copies of Stellarknight Deltaros. Deltaros is such an insane card. Now, let's talk a little bit about this. Let me check my camera. So, Trivier, the XYZs for the Stellarknights all flow. If she's sent from the field to the graveyard while she has XYZ material, she special summons. I'm sorry, if she's sent to the graveyard while she has XYZ materials, then she'll special summon a Stellarknight from the grave. So she has to be summoned. So if your opponent Solemn strikes her, then she will not get her effect off. And Deltaros actually says if this card sent from the field to the graveyard, special summon a Stellarknight from your hand or your deck. Now, the reason why he's more broken is because he doesn't have to have XYZ materials like Trivier. Why are you saying that, 3 stacks? Stellarknight Altair can actually special summon any Stellarknight from your graveyard. Well, it's Altair. We'll show you him right here. When this card is summoned, he can special summon any Stellarknight from your graveyard. It does not have to have a level. So you can summon him and summon Deltaros from grave. Why is that so important? Because if Deltaros gets sent from the field to the graveyard, whether he has XYZ material or not, as long as he was properly summoned, when he's sent from the field to the grave, he will get his effect. It is legal. You can look it up if you think I'm lying. I've done this all the time. I did this when Stellarknights were a thing and I blew people's minds. And then a couple dudes at my locals were like, I'm going to start doing it this way now. That is the best way to abuse Deltaros. He's one of the best floaters. That's why I play 2 of him. And then we're playing 2 copies of Stellarknight Batlamius, Dark Tellarknight. Before Link format, I had an idea with Dark Law because she makes all monsters on the field dark, including your own. So I was like, let's play 2 Mass Chains and let's play Dark Law. But we're in Link format now, so it's not really possible. It's kind of sad, but she's really good. She lets you make any 3 XYZ material Stellarknight for 2, basically. Then we're playing 1 Stellarknight Diamond. Diamond is so great for Infernoids, for Light Sworns, and I think that's it. I think there's no other deck. Oh yeah, and of course, you know, Denlong. If they're going to use Denlong's effect, they can't use it to, you know, send Chi Win from the deck to the grave. So he has his days, but he's not all that great in this format. Well, one thing I will say, when we were not in Link format, there was a cool setup where me personally, I would go for Batlamius and Diamond, Bat Lamius makes all monsters dark, and Diamond's effect can negate the activation of any dark monster. So, as you can imagine, I made all monsters dark, and all monsters can be negated now by Diamond, because Diamond during either player's turn negates the activation of a dark monster's effect and destroys it, in addition to him stopping cards from being sent from the deck to the grave. So it was a pretty cool thing that I did in Link format. It was totally original. I had thought of it myself, but we can't do it anymore. It's kind of sad because I don't play Links and they're not worth it in Stellarknights. One Ragnarmaniad, if you make him the right way in this deck, he can either win you the game or steal like 2 to 3 turns, which will give you free time to just play and do what you want. The Utopia package, Emerald, and Abyss Dweller to sum up the extra deck. Now, thank you guys so much for watching this deck profile. I appreciate the love. There are a couple cards that I could be playing. I could be playing him. If I play Trap Holes, I could play Rafflesia. I could play the second of him, but it doesn't really come up. But yeah, I just wanted to show some appreciation to Rogue decks, and this is also fulfilling a deck request. A lot of people, well, not a lot, but quite a few people were like, yo, can I see Stellarknights coming from you? Can I see, your take on it? I have another build of Stellarknights that I want to do, and it was a build that I did with counter fairies. I ran 3 Guiding Ariadnes. I ran 3 Star Seraph Scepters, I ran 3 Sovereignties, and I ran 3 Ties of the Brethren. So I would either Ties of the Brethren on the Stellarknight, or I would activate Ties on either Scepter, Sovereignty, or Guiding Ariadne, because they're all level 4 light fairies, and just go wombo combo. And of course, I know that Star Seraph Stellarknights are a thing. It's not like, oh my god, I'm trying something new. I know that they exist. It was just something I tried out with the Guiding Ariadnes. The Guiding Ariadnes helped because I could play strikes for free. I played 2 Ultimate Providences. It was like a Stellarknight counter fairy build with Ties. So stay tuned for that. And the reason why I'm not playing Ties in this build is because I play Card of Demise, and I just don't want it to conflict with the engines. You can try it out with both I have, but it breaks sometimes. So yeah, God bless you guys. Thank you so much for watching the deck profile. Make good choices. Don't hurt your brain cells. And Carthage must be destroyed. Amen.